The first thing
You
I
look
felt
like
was
you've been through a
fear,
lot. Come here,
not the
let me help
sharp
you with
kind,
that.
but the
Thanks,
slow,
that would be
creeping
great.
kind that tells you something in your life has quietly shifted. Then she spoke, standing there in my bathroom like a ghost who had forgotten how to disappear. I had come home late that night, the kind of late where the city feels emptied out and your own footsteps echo too loudly in your head. Rain clung to my jacket, and my keys rattled more than usual as I unlocked the door to my cabin. I lived alone, miles away from neighbors, surrounded by pine trees and silence I usually welcomed. That night, the silence felt different, thick, watchful. I tossed my bag on the chair, kicked off my shoes, and headed straight for the bathroom to wash the road off my hands. The light was already on. I froze. At first, my brain tried to correct the image to explain it away. Maybe I'd forgotten to turn the light off. Maybe exhaustion was playing tricks on me. But then I saw her reflection in the mirror before I saw her fully. Blonde hair pulled back loosely, shoulders tense, hands clutching a towel like it was the last solid thing in the world. She turned toward me slowly, as if sudden movements might shatter whatever fragile balance she was standing on. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, her voice trembling but controlled. I didn't know where else to go. My heart slammed against my ribs. Every instinct screamed at me to step back, to ask questions, to demand answers. Instead, I stood there, staring at a woman I had never seen before inside my locked home, looking more frightened than dangerous. "Who are you?" I finally managed. She swallowed. "My name is Claire." The towel was wrapped around her hands, not her body. She was fully dressed, simple tank top, dark pants, but the way she held that towel told me everything about how exposed she felt. "I know this looks bad," she continued, her words tumbling over each other. "I didn't plan this. She stopped, took a breath, and met my eyes. "Please, can I stay for one night?" There it was. Not a demand. Not a story designed to convince me. Just a question, hanging in the air between us like a fragile thread. I should have said no. Any rational person would have. A stranger in your bathroom at midnight isn't the start of anything good. But something about her, maybe the raw honesty in her eyes, maybe the way she stood as if bracing for rejection, made me hesitate. "Sit," I said, surprising both of us. On the edge of the tub, she obeyed immediately, relief flickering across her face before she masked it. I leaned against the door frame, keeping my distance. "Where did you get in?" I asked. "The back window," she admitted. "It was open. I remembered now. I'd cracked it earlier to air the place out and forgotten to latch it." The realization didn't calm me. "Why here?" I asked. She looked down at her hands. "Because it was dark and quiet, and there were no lights on." That answer unsettled me more than any elaborate excuse could have. I studied her while she spoke. She looked to be in her late 30s, maybe early 40s. No makeup, faint lines at the corners of her eyes that suggested she smiled often, at least once upon a time. There were no visible injuries, no signs of drugs or alcohol, just exhaustion. Bone deep, soul-level exhaustion. "I'm not here to steal anything," she said softly. "I didn't even know you lived here until I heard your car. That made my pulse spike. You were planning to stay anyway?" Her lips trembled. "Just to sleep. On the floor if I had to. I would have been gone before morning." I ran a hand through my hair, pacing once before stopping. "You could have knocked." "I tried a house down the road," she said. No answer. I didn't think anyone would be awake here. Something in her tone told me that wasn't the first door she'd tried. Silence filled the room again. Outside, the rain tapped gently against the windows, steady and relentless. I thought of the empty road, the woods stretching endlessly in every direction. Whatever had driven her here hadn't been small. "What happened?" I asked. She hesitated, then shook her head. "Not tonight. If you let me stay, I'll explain tomorrow. Or I'll leave first thing. I swear." I looked at my own reflection in the mirror. Older than I felt, lines carved by years of solitude I'd chosen and defended fiercely. I had built this life to be predictable, safe, empty in a way that never demanded anything from me. And now there was a woman in my bathroom asking for one night. "Do you have anywhere else to go?" I asked. Her silence was answer enough. I exhaled slowly. "You can stay. One night." Her shoulders sagged with relief, and for a moment she looked like she might cry. Instead, she nodded. "Thank you. I won't cause any trouble." I set boundaries immediately. Guest room, door locked if I wanted. She could use a shower, but nothing else without asking. She agreed to everything without hesitation. When I handed her a spare towel and a blanket, our fingers brushed accidentally. She flinched, then looked up at me with an embarrassed smile. "Sorry, I'm just on edge." "So am I admitted." She took the things and headed down the hall, pausing at the guest room door. "I really am grateful," she said. "You didn't have to say yes." "I know," I replied. When she disappeared into the room, I locked my bedroom door that night for the first time in years. Sleep came in fragments. Images of headlights in the rain, footsteps on gravel, her voice saying please like it was the last word she had left. Sometime before dawn, I heard her crying. It wasn't loud, just quiet, broken breaths leaking through the thin walls. The sound pulled at something in me I thought I'd buried long ago, the part that still believed in helping, in staying, in not turning away when someone asked for shelter. By morning, when sunlight crept through the windows and the rain finally stopped, I knew one thing for certain. Letting her stay for one night had already changed everything. Morning didn't arrive all at once. It crept in quietly, like it wasn't sure it was welcome after the night we'd had. Pale light filtered through the curtains, touching the wooden walls of the cabin and turning everything soft and unreal. I lay awake longer than usual, listening. No crying now, no movement, just the distant call of birds and the hum of a world that had continued spinning while a stranger slept under my roof. When I finally stepped into the hallway, the guest room door was open. For one sharp second, panic seized me. My heart jumped, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. She'd left, she'd taken something, she'd disappeared like she'd never existed at all. Then I saw her. Claire was standing at the small kitchen window, holding a mug with both hands, staring out at the trees. She had changed into one of the old sweatshirts I kept for guests, sleeves pushed up, hair loose, and still slightly damp. She turned when she heard me. "I made coffee," she said cautiously. "I hope that's okay." "It's fine," I replied, though my voice came out rougher than I intended. She nodded, as if expecting tension, and took a step back from the counter. That same instinct to make herself smaller again. It bothered me more than it should have. "You didn't leave," I said. Her mouth curved into a faint, tired smile. "I said I'd be gone by morning if you wanted. You didn't ask." I poured myself a cup and leaned against the counter, watching her from the corner of my eye. In daylight, she looked different, still worn, but human in a way shadows had hidden. There was intelligence in her gaze, a quiet sharpness that hadn't dulled despite whatever had dragged her here. "You said you'd explain," I reminded her. She nodded, bracing herself. "Yeah, I did." She didn't start right away. Instead, she took a slow sip of coffee, as if anchoring herself to something solid before letting go. "I wasn't running from the law," she began, "or from a man with a gun. I know that's what people expect." "What were you running from?" I asked. "My life," she said simply. "The one I spent 20 years building, and one day realized didn't belong to me anymore." She told me about her husband, how they'd met young, built a business together, raised a daughter who had just left for college. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Inside, she'd been disappearing piece by piece. "He didn't hit me," she said quickly, like she needed to clarify. "He didn't cheat. He just erased me. Decisions were made without me. Plans didn't include me. I became useful, not necessary." I knew that kind of loneliness, the kind that exists even when someone is sitting right beside you. "The night I left," she continued, "I realized I couldn't remember the last time anyone had asked me what I wanted. So she packed a bag. Not much, clothes, documents, photos. She drove without a plan, just followed the road until the road stopped making sense. When the car ran out of gas miles from anywhere, she started walking. And that's when I saw your house," she said softly. "A lightless place in the woods. It felt neutral, like it wouldn't judge me. The weight of that settled between us. I'm not asking to stay longer," she added quickly. "I just needed one night where no one expected anything from me." I nodded slowly. "You can stay until you figure out your next step." She stared at me, startled. You don't even know me. No, I agreed. But I know what it looks like when someone has nowhere left to stand. Something shifted then. Not relief, something deeper. Recognition. The day unfolded quietly. She helped without being asked, cleaned dishes she hadn't used, folded the blanket she'd slept under. It wasn't gratitude, it was habit, survival behavior. I saw it because I recognized it. By afternoon, we were sitting on the porch, the air cool and clean after the rain. She wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the trees like they might offer answers. Are you always this quiet? She asked. Only when I don't want to hear my own thoughts, I replied. She smiled at that. A real one this time. She stayed 2 nights, then 3. On the 4th morning, she tried to leave. I found her standing by the door with her bag, shoulders tense like she was preparing for impact. I can't keep imposing, she said. You've already done more than enough. You're not imposing, I replied. You're just here. She hesitated. That's how it starts. Then suddenly I'm taking up space I'm not supposed to. I stepped closer, not crowding her, just enough to be present. You're allowed to take up space. Her eyes filled before she could stop them. She stayed. Days turned into weeks. Not in a dramatic way. No declarations, no grand moments. Just shared meals, conversations that stretched late into the night, silences that felt comfortable instead of heavy. She told me things she'd never said out loud. I told her things I thought I'd buried with the life I left behind years ago. Somewhere along the way, the cabin stopped feeling empty. One evening, while washing dishes together, she laughed, really laughed, at something stupid I said. The sound hit me like a shock. It echoed through the room, alive and unguarded, and I realized how long it had been since I'd heard laughter that wasn't forced. She noticed me staring. What? Nothing, I said. Just forgot what that sounded like. She grew serious then. I don't want to be someone you rescue. I met her gaze. Good. I don't want to be someone who rescues. I want to be someone who chooses. She nodded, understanding exactly what I meant. When she finally decided to move on, really move on, it wasn't an escape this time. She had plans. A job offer in a nearby town. An apartment. A life that belonged to her. The night before she left, we sat on the porch again, the stars sharp above us. I never planned to knock on your door, she said quietly. But I think I was meant to. So was I replied. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Not as a plea, not as a promise, just as a truth. The next morning, she walked out the door with her bag in hand and certainty in her step. She turned back once. Thank you, she said, for the night I asked for, and the life I remembered how to want. After she left, the cabin was quiet again. But it wasn't empty anymore, because sometimes one night is all it takes to change the direction of everything.